I'm Lisa and I'm a PhD student at UCL, but I previously worked on this project as a research assistant at King's College. So my role was in leading the project and organising the studies and planning them, and I was the first author of the paper. And really, what interests me the most about this project are the social justice implications and the fact that female health is such an important issue worldwide. And privacy is a main concern that users have with female health technologies. So it can actually be quite a barrier to good healthcare.
My name is Ina Kaleva, and I've been working as a research assistant on this project at King's College London. The study was of great interest to me because of the sensitivity of the issues surrounding reproductive rights of women around the world and the importance of intimate data privacy in this context.
Hi, I'm Dilisha Patel. I was a researcher on this project. My background is in digital health and women's health. So that's really what interested me about this work. So previously I've done work with femtech, but it's more about the usability of the features and how people use the app. So looking at the data privacy was a different and novel aspect for me, and really interested on giving another context of the work of women's health and femtech.
Yeah, I'm Mark. I'm an assistant professor or lecturer in computer science at UCL, and I was one of the co-investigators on this project. So I've been involved in research at the intersection of privacy and digital health for a little while. I'm really interested in how apps in particular incorporate deletion mechanisms. And so for me, this was what was really fascinating about this particular project, particularly how sensitive the data is that these types of apps are collecting, and the potential risks of offline and online harms that can be caused by sort of inappropriate uses of this types of data, especially in areas of the world where abortion is legally restricted.
I am Ruba. I am a lecturer or an assistant professor of computer science at King's College London, and I work at the intersection of HCI, security, privacy, and public policy. I was the PI on this project, and I was very interested in this project because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade back in June 2022, and that made a shift in how female health app users navigated the sharing of their reproductive health data. And I was very much interested in understanding the privacy practices of female health apps. Female mobile health apps provide innovative opportunities for the management of women's health by offering period, fertility, and sexual activity tracking and predictive services. However, the ubiquity of those apps has advanced the practice of intimate surveillance and the harvesting of data, while the overturning of Roe v. Wade has prompted reflection on the privacy and safety implications of female health apps. The privacy practices of these apps were not yet thoroughly explored in a post-Roe world when we started this project. So we were interested in understanding the app privacy practices in a post-Roe world.
So female mobile health apps are part of the femtech industry and are applications specifically designed to support female health issues and needs, such as those related to, for example, menstrual health and fertility, pregnancy, contraception, sexual health, and just general health and wellness as well. And some common features they provide include period tracking, menstrual cycle history and predictions, pregnancy monitoring, pill reminders, symptom logs, and so on.
We use the terms femtech and female health apps to remain consistent with how these technologies are being described in the industry. We refer to femtech users as women to remain consistent with how participants have been described in previous academic work. However, we do acknowledge that some users of female health apps or femtech in general may not identify as women or as female, but are included in our work as users of femtech.
So Lisa, you very much led the project, sort of in terms of data collection analysis. So So the work and the paper describes the analysis of various different data sources, including Google data sections that appear in Google Play Store, as well as the privacy policies of these apps, and then the actual apps themselves. So why the focus on these data sources for analysis in particular?
Yeah, so we focused on these sources because they're the most likely place a user would look for information about an app's privacy practices. So the privacy policy is typically the gold standard for transparency, one would hope. It's where you would expect to find the most fine-grained information about what data an app collects, how it processes, whether it shares this data, and what the user's options are with respect to control over their privacy. The data safety section is essentially a more condensed version of the privacy policy. It's designed to give a high-level overview of app privacy and was introduced to deal with some of the readability and length issues in traditional privacy policies. Lastly, looking at the apps themselves gives us an idea of what privacy features the apps actually implement, and how usable they are. So that gives us an understanding of what people's privacy options are, and also whether these are consistent with what's described in the privacy policies and data safety sheet. So analysing multiple sources allows us to do an analysis of how consistent these are, and whether there are any discrepancies across sources that could confuse users.
Yeah, because I mean, like most research suggests that most people don't read the privacy policy itself. So, you could argue, well, what's the benefit of analyzing the privacy policy? No one reads it. No one reads these things anyway. But I guess that's the reason for analyzing these data safety sections, because they're designed to be a more usable form of the privacy policy. And then obviously the app itself is hopefully going to mirror what's being said within both the privacy policy and the data safety sheet. But obviously the work, so one part of the work sort of identified that this was not necessarily always the case.
And yeah, it's true that people don't always read the privacy policies, but the idea is that they give information about how the app processes user data. These apps are using people's data, whether they're aware of it or not. So if we can be aware of these on a larger scale, aware of these practices, we can think of better ways to communicate them to users in a way that doesn't involve reading a 3,000 word long document.
Yeah.
Our code book is a framework for analysing particularly female health app privacy policies that we developed iteratively based on analysing a number of privacy policies and building a set of generalisable categories of information. So it provides a comprehensive set of codes which cover the key information you would expect to find in a privacy policy, such as the type of data collected, how and why it's collected, how it's used, and whether it's transferred to third parties, and if so, who these third parties are. We also capture nuances relating to user consent mechanisms and the privacy rights offered to users under various legislation, such as the GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA, to reflect the fact that users all over the world use these apps and will be subject to various different legal frameworks. So while we did use female health app privacy policies to construct our code book, the categories can easily be adapted to future analysis of other app types, particularly in the area of health, because we designed our codes to be quite generalizable and adaptable to different contexts. One other aspect is that it can be used in automated privacy policy analysis as a foundation for understanding app privacy practices at a larger scale. It's been evaluated manually on a smaller set of privacy policies, but it can easily be expanded to a larger set as well.
But one of the things that really struck me was I think we found about half of the apps that we reviewed explicitly say that they do pass on or sell data within the app to third party and advertisers. And I think when you're using these technologies, especially in this climate, under these conditions, having the thought or the possibility that your data could be shared is quite concerning. And especially with many of these apps, you have to accept all these conditions with a blanket one tick box to be able to use the app itself. And like we said, we're not often reading or aware of these things, but I think it was quite surprising and really important to note that many of these apps do have these kind of things hidden, or not hidden, are within their privacy policies, that they do openly share the data with other people, as they can, and the fact that the user has ticked this box enables them to do so.
I guess what was worrying to me is that these data safety sections, which are designed to try and make these privacy policies more digestible for users, were often not really well reflecting that within the data safety section. Like if you were to be like a lay person just looking at that data safety section, most of the time it'd be like, well, no, this app isn't sharing anything, but actually it is sharing it. It's just sharing it in a way that in a way that the app developers don't necessarily need to report it within that data safety section. And I know this has been something that's found before, but I think in this particular genre of application, with the sensitivity of information that's being shared, I think that is particularly worrying.
I think a big theme that came from the work were the usability issues of in-app features, particularly for data deletion. And we saw this around inconsistencies in the language used to refer to data deletion, conflating the terms delete, erase. Often you had multiple options for account deletion versus data deletion. And, there's obviously arguments for flexibility with that respect, but often the way that these features were implemented was quite confusing. And even when we were analysing, we would get confused because there was just such an array of features, all with conflicting terminology. So I think a lack of standardization in how privacy features are implemented is an issue across these apps, because obviously data deletion is a really important tool in users' arsenal in protecting their privacy, particularly if, for instance, they live in a state that's suddenly become a lot more hostile in terms of its legal landscape. A user might just want to quick delete all of the data that they've got in an app. It was very common across these apps that inferences would be made about users, for instance, predicting their fertile windows, and just more fine-grained analytical patterns about their usage of the app, which were used to personalize and target advertisements. And in most cases, we weren't really able to figure out what those exact inferences were and how they were made. Which is concerning, because it means that sensitive information is not only entered by users, but can be created about users based on the raw data that they input. So, data that isn't necessarily sensitive in isolation could be combined and inferred to create information that actually is sensitive.
In this paper, we only included 20 popular female health apps that were available in Google Play in our analysis. So future work can analyze the privacy practices of popular iOS apps on the Apple App Store. That would be valuable, especially if they want to compare the privacy practices of iOS and Android apps. Also, Lisa mentioned something about the codebook. So we developed the codebook based on a manual analysis of a small set of privacy policies. Future work could upscale our approach by using our codebook to automate the analysis of a larger set of privacy policies and conduct quantitative linguistic analysis to produce metrics for policy readability and complexity. We plan in future work to conduct a user study to understand the privacy perceptions and mental models of female mHealth app users. We also plan to conduct a follow-up interview study with developers of female health apps, because this will help us understand their views and practices when it comes to user privacy and user safety. And finally, legal specialists were not involved in our research, although a lot of our findings have legal, they can actually influence public policy. So we're thinking about involving legal specialists to understand, for example, how different geographic locations of app developers or servers, as well as their corresponding jurisdictions, could implicate users. So if you want to learn more about our paper, the methods that we have used, and our results, there are loads of findings and interesting results there. Just please go ahead and read our paper.
And also feel free to contact us as well, because we're also really interested to speak to other people who are interested in this work too. Cool. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh.
Bye-bye.